What's up, everyone? Adam Gelman here. We have the entire WTC crew in probably one of the biggest news days we've had in a very, very long time. I think the last time we all got together was to talk about something awesome that has happened within the WWE card market. This time, a little bit of a different scenario. We've got Paul, Tony, and Ryan. The WTC Supershow crew is back. A lot to discuss. How you guys doing?
Right?
Good, good. What a fun day, right?
Yeah, interesting day for sure.
Yeah, it's been a
It never
long one. I think I've been.
these news, especially involving around the world of Panini, never ceases to amaze me, man. I just every single story ends up being like, wait a second, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Paul. You were going to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, lay it out for us, Adam. Let everyone know what happened.
All right. So, just for those of you who haven't been on social media this afternoon, basically, Darren Rovell, sometime early in the afternoon, tweeted out that much like what has been going down with the NFLPA recently, WWE, as of a couple of weeks ago, had terminated Panini's WWE trading card license. Now, originally, this was a very unique situation, and here's why. Panini originally obtained the WWE card license at the beginning of 2022, and that was slated to run at least for a few years. There wasn't a solidified date, but it was a number of years. Usually it was 3 to 4 years. We were expecting 2025, 26 that it was going to go through. The day that Prism was released onto the market, we had an announcement that not only was Fanatics going to take back the WWE trading card license at the end of the Panini agreement, but they were also taking over all merchandising for WWE. That happened in April of 2022. Fast forward to about a month ago, we got a very interesting tweet from Darren Rovell similarly, which was that the NFLPA, which is the licensing arm of all current NFL players, their likenesses, and everything associated with it, was terminating their license with Panini 2 years ahead of schedule, which was originally slated to end much like WWE in 2026. So you can imagine Panini has had this dark cloud of Fanatics hanging over them in NFL, NBA, and a number of other sports, including WWE now for a very long time. There were not many people that had very high hopes for the future of Panini. However, coming out of the National in Chicago this summer, we found out that Panini was going to be suing Fanatics for antitrust, meaning Panini was a little bit tired that Fanatics was taking over all the production, the auction houses, the distributors, the you name it, Fanatics has it. The vaults, PWCC, I mean, it's all under Fanatics control right now. So Panini sued. And I think what ended up happening was Michael Rubin decided, okay, my plan for total domination of the card market is going to go off a little bit earlier than expected. So what ended up likely happening was he walked into, at some point, a meeting with WWE 2 weeks ahead of their merger, their $20 billion merger with Endeavor, and said, you know those guys, Panini over there that have your trading card license? It's done. We're over. It's now done. And they terminated the license. So for all intents and purposes, Panini, as if they did nothing, would no longer have the ability to produce WWE cards. That's in itself. So that's number one. Number two, WWE also filed an injunction to ensure that Panini could not release any future product. So instead of just saying, no, we're terminating the license, they also filed an injunction to make sure that Panini couldn't release any additional products under their existing trading card license, which they have been doing with the NFL currently. Flawless Football just came out today, even though they have no NFLPA license as it's been terminated. Panini, in response to that, filed a countersuit saying that not only that, we're going to sue you back and we want the license to continue. And, you say we owe you $5.6 million worth of extended royalties on the remaining 2 years of this contract. We are not going to pay you that money. So lawsuits being traded, licenses being canceled, big news all around. Initial reactions from the group. Paul, what was your initial take when you saw this go down?
I wasn't that stunned, to be honest, because like I'm a Ruben guy, and I know how he operates. And even though you made the point earlier,
Right.
Adam, that look, this is an action between Panini and WWE. It's got Michael Rubin's fingerprints all over it,
Yes.
because this is how he operates.
Absolutely.
But to just take a step back, I mean, we all knew that the license was gonna end. Today we found out precisely it was gonna end on October 21st, 2025. Today's September 20th, so like 2 years and a month. And all this does is hasten what was going to happen anyways. We knew Topps was coming back, so now Topps is coming back sooner than we expected. And all the questions and the speculations and the maybe this and the maybe that's are going to come until a judge sorts this all out. And like you laid out, Adam, it's complicated because there's a suit, there's a countersuit. Specifically, if you look at the countersuit that we had the opportunity to, or the Panini response we got to see today, it's a specific performance clause that they refer to that they didn't live up to their end of the bargain, or so
Right.
WWE intimates. But their defense is, and it's very interesting. They're saying, well, we've been at this now for a year and a half, and now you bring this up essentially. But there was some very interesting things in that, insofar as that on that first page, they mentioned that they'd made their minimum monthly requirement and then some every month. So it certainly wasn't a fiscal issue. They were making money. And something I found it very interesting, and this was in the document, they lay claim to dramatically expanding the wrestling card market, which is true. So they're well aware of what their impact was on our hobby. So now, from a practical point of view, a judge has to decide this, but everything is what happens in the short term and what are we doing and when's the next set coming out. I guess it depends on where Elite is in the production cycle, right? Is that off to distributors already? Has it been paid for? Nothing changes tomorrow. The presses aren't going to stop tonight, but it's going to be very interesting and very uncertain, I suspect, for the next few weeks until we figure out what's going to happen. But it's Michael Rubin's world,
Yeah.
guys. So it's going to happen the way he wants it to happen.
One way or another.
And this is,
The
like
Thanos
right
is
away,
inevitable.
when I
Yes.
saw that, I'm like, oh, fucking Rubin, because this is how he operates, like back in the early 2000s when he was consolidating vertical markets in the e-commerce world, he spent half of his days litigating, and they invented a lot of the trade laws that are now commonplace for these kinds of scenarios. So this is a guy that is not unaccustomed to these kinds of battles. And Brian Gray made a good point to you, is that you can't buy Panini because then it obviously smarks of monopoly, right? And the FTC probably wouldn't allow that. And that's why I asked you the question. Well, I'm a Canadian, so I don't know how American law works, but what's the timeline on injunction? And then you say, well, it doesn't matter. They still crank out the stuff anyways. So there's so many questions. You think of a question, it leads to another question. So anyways, that's my perspective on it. It's like a lot of unknowns, but really interesting times again. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, that
I agree with you. I mean, we all knew this was coming down the pike. We knew it was coming last year. It really seems like Ruben has a bee in his bonnet right now. I gotta tell you, because he's like Daenerys on the back of that dragon, just scorching everything in front of him. And
I like Thanos reference there. It's like that. So it's like that.
it's inevitable.
Yeah, it's the it's scenes like that. Just fine. I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
But it's just. We knew it was coming. I agree. I didn't think it'd be this quick, but it seems like some things have happened behind the scenes that have gotten him riled up, and he's ready to go. And we're just along for the ride. It is what it is, as far as I'm concerned. I'm happy to see what's going to come. I know it's going to be a while. I just hope they do it right. I hope they do it justice. I really do. That's my concern is the wrestling market, because the wrestling market was doing really well. It still is doing really well. And I just hope that they continue that excellence. So we'll see. We'll see.
Agreed.
Tony?
Yeah, I agree with everything that everybody's saying here. I mean, this is, how do I put this? I don't care if you're a loud crier of displeasure about Panini, or if you like to think that you're some kind of Nostradamus of all trading cards in the world. But as a 3-year-old, a 3-year-old knew this day was coming. Okay, no one's ever said that this wasn't coming. This is not. We knew this was inevitable. So it's happening. It's happening sooner. There's a lot of things at play that go on with these things behind the scenes that we don't know about. We find out through secondhand, and then it also comes an announcement like this. So, I don't. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. So I'm sure we're going to try to get involved in some of this right now.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that you bring up is like we all knew this day was coming. We did know this day was coming. Here's what caught me by surprise and why I didn't think it was coming this quickly. For those of you who aren't aware of kind of why Fanatics has been able to take over the league's licenses the way that they are, the leagues have an equity stake in Fanatics. So when Fanatics takes over the jerseys and the shirts and the all the stuff that Fanatics sells to them, the leagues themselves own a part of Fanatics stake. And so it makes sense that they want Fanatics to be successful. WWE is a completely different situation. And the fact that they were about to go through with this merger and they still figured out a way to get this through just shows the amount of influence that somebody like Michael Rubin has over a company who is about to go through their biggest couple of weeks in the history of a 50 to 60 year period. Like nothing in the last 2 weeks has ever happened at WWE. And that includes when Vince bought it from his father. I mean, nothing like that has ever. It has always been a McMahon company. It is no longer a McMahon company. It is a co-owned, conglomerate of UFC named Endeavor, and that is a historic moment. And then, literally a couple of days after that closes, this happens. We find out that a couple of weeks ago this event took place. Like that's unprecedented, and I think to mention kind of what Tony was saying and also to capitalize on sort of what Paul was saying as well is like there's a ton of uncertainty here. And the reason that we four guys in our offices talking about this shit, like there's a reason why it's so difficult for us to sort of talk about this is because in the card world this has never happened before. And like there's so little historical precedent here to look back
let me
on.
interrupt there for a sec, Adam. It's not exactly the same, but we've been through a bankruptcy before. Fleer was in the middle in the early 2000s.
True, very true. Yeah.
When their business failed, and they had to stop on their last set when midstream,
very true,
essentially, and then Topps came and swooped in. Now in this case, we knew that Topps was coming. It's just the inner workings. Look, hit the nail on the head. With the Endeavor merger, all of a sudden I see The Rock turn up the next day on TV, and I realized, yeah, things are afoot. And then you see this deal with Endeavor, and you have to imagine that their relationship, the symbiotic one, as you mentioned, because there's ownership going both ways, with a company the size of Endeavor that has UFC and WWE, their relationship goes way beyond trading cards, right? So
yeah, absolutely,
Michael, when the dollars that they have in Shop Zone and in the merchandise and in the jerseys and stuff around the world, it's massive. So trading cards is a little pet projects of Rubin's at the moment as he quietly goes and gobbles up the entire industry. And as I say earlier, things are going to be very clear as to where they're going to land. I don't think, like, we as hobbyists, we as collectors, we survive. We're going to be there to buy the next set.
Oh yeah,
not like
yeah.
wrestling cards are going to stop. The conjecture is going to be around the value of the Panini product, short term, long term, going up, going down, and these are the maybes that we're going to get into. But the honest truth is we don't know a lot. It's only been a few hours since we read the counterclaim, and
right, exactly.
this went down 2 weeks ago. It was kept under wraps. None of us knew 2 weeks ago that WWE
it didn't leak. There was not a dirt sheet that covered this.
Not at all.
Yeah,
not at all. So it was a matter of law that it was kept under wraps. And then, when Panini filed the response today, it got out, and we got to see, in an 8-page summary of what it is. And it's like, okay, this is not something that's going to be solved overnight. This is definitely going to go to court, and it could take a while to get sorted out. And like you mentioned earlier, Panini, with product on the shelves and in production, they're going to keep cranking it out. It's just a question of when that hard cut is going to be. When is it tomorrow? And all of a sudden, because I asked you, Adam, earlier, can we have concurrent Topps and Panini product? And that's a possibility, distinctly, right?
It's absolutely a possibility. But I think there's a couple of things here worth mentioning. One, the injunction was filed by WWE and Panini. Fanatics legally is not involved in any of this yet, which is really interesting. That's number one. Number two, the injunction that the countersuit to the countersuit that WWE filed was filed under seal. We will not be able to see most of what is being said there. Thank you, Paul Lesko, for that. So I think a lot of what is going down here is going to be done behind the scenes. Here is where I think this is going to be really challenging for the collectors to make sense of it. First of all, it's all legal. and most of us are not experts there. We have people like Paul Lesko to help us navigate through some of those waters, but a lot of us don't have this experience. That's number one. And number two, a lot of it could just burn bridges. Like legal action burns bridges. And I think the challenge that Panini is going to face here is that they are asking, if you look at the final page of the document that Panini has filed publicly, it gives their asks. And one of their asks is to resume the license. And I'm just like, guys, like there's going to be a settlement maybe somewhere in between here. Maybe they get to clear inventory or they get to put out their final sets that were in production. But I really don't see a future where WWE and Panini are going to come back to the table and work together in a symbiotic way like they used to.
They're done. Make no mistake about it. Panini is
Yeah.
We're still going to get divorced, but we're going to live together for a while.
Right.
Like
I think that's a challenge.
You know, they got the license and it was about a week. You know, the first product just hit the market and the news was out that they were losing the license before they even began.
They actually had the license January 1st. They got the license on January 1st. Yeah.
But a short time thereafter, you know, so it doesn't matter what they did. You know, now all the incentive for them to kick ass and really, you know, build a relationship is gone because they know that they're walking dead essentially. And they did. You know, they cranked out a lot of product, and to their point in their counterclaim, they lived up to their end of the bargain. So they said that things went swimmingly for what 13 months, 14 months it's been now, and now all of a sudden. So this is behind the scenes legal and political bullshit that's going on with a guy at the top.
Absolutely,
really knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, and I think there's going to be a couple of months here that are going to be really heavy on the news and a lot of light on product. I think Elite might come out. I think that's going to be difficult for probably the courts to stop unless the judge steps in on this injunction and completely shuts everything down. Ryan, I know you were mentioning before the UFC instant stuff that's been dropping in a sticker dump, trying to get rid of stuff before that license probably gets terminated. There's things that can happen. We'll get to that in a second here. But like, I think that there's going to be a lot of things that happen pretty rapid fire over the next couple of weeks as Panini tries to probably run damage control, not Bailey and Io Sky and Dakota Kai, but actual damage control. And I think that the main things that people are going to have to really wonder is this going to be the final stuff we see for potentially a very long period of time? And the reason that that's a question is because if the license was terminated 2 weeks ago and theoretically given to Topps right away, for them to step in, they would have to create a team, create a product, even if they just transition the baseball design over. Can't be chrome because that takes forever to produce. Can't be on card. That takes forever to produce. Got to get stickers signed. You got to get this. You got to get that. I mean, production timelines are likely 4 to 6 months to get a product built. And unless they were working on something, you're going to be without wrestling products for a very long time. If you remember back to 2020, when COVID was really at its height, we had Road to WrestleMania come out in January, Transcendent not until July, and then it was September, October timeframe before Chrome and Finest hit. In between there, wrestling collectors had nothing, and we were starving. So I think we could even see a longer time, especially if legal drags out. People are fighting. We could really be in for the long haul here. Tony, any thoughts on kind of what, as you're a shop owner, like?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really specialize in wax, so I don't really care about too much about that. You know, I'm buying out collections and stuff. I'm more interested in seeing what happens now when people are going to start dumping stuff to me, or they're going to try to, you know, price gouge me, or I don't know yet, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, in a sense, my wallet is happy that I don't have to worry about buying anything while. Right. Gives me I feel like Chuckster in this sense, where it's like, you know what, I can't really keep up with my set buying, but now I have an opportunity to go back and start filling in the holes in my collections stuff I'm missing. If that was, you know, me, but I'm okay with no new product right now. I'm not starving for stuff constantly. There's still so much that Panini's put out, and it's even stuff back from the top stuff that I like to go back and try to get my hands on anyway. So I don't it doesn't really affect me in that sense, but for collectors who are always starving for something new and the next thing, it's going to suck. It's going to, I don't think, unless this Elite comes out, which at this point, Panini just says, fuck it. Who cares? I just throw it out anyways. You know, I mean, what are you going to do? Sue me again?
What do you have to lose? Yeah. What do you have to lose?
you going to take half of my nothing or all of my nothing?
Right.
So it's
Personally, I could take a breather. Like I've been
Yeah.
at this Panini
Well,
shit.
yeah, you're a set
pretty
collector.
intense,
If you're not,
you know.
you need a chance to catch up on
Right.
some of your stuff.
But
Yeah,
it's just
I've been playing this Panini dance since the first set, and I'm still going, and it's been tricky, especially on the Immaculates. So I agree with Tony. Like it's I don't think we're going to go years
It's
without
been a
sets,
lot.
but
no.
it's been pretty intense.
If Elite doesn't come out and it gets stopped, which I can't think that it would. I would imagine it's probably already gone to print.
Depends on where it is in production, right?
Oh,
But if
it's definitely
made,
a print. They've signed cards. Yeah.
yeah,
They've
if it's
printed.
made, we'll see it for sure.
Yeah. Well, or unless the injunction says no, you can't stop. You can't do it. But at this point, I think that Panini would pretty much just say,
They
like,
could do it
hey,
anyways.
F it. I'm going to do it anyways. Who cares?
Right.
If that ends up being it, there's nothing going to come out until spring next year, minimum, summer maybe.
Of WWE.
Yeah, we could go
I mean,
WrestleMania.
we're still gonna purely have AEW. We're still gonna have indie. We're still gonna have cards. It's just the major WWE product we're talking about.
You know who could be the big winner in this?
Upper Deck, maybe.
Upper Deck, absolutely.
Upper Deck, if they get off their asses and start running the presses and get their products out, could be a huge winner.
You know what? But I think they might have gotten wind of this, by the way. Have you noticed all their announcements they've had lately, already having their flagship product being announced already, another metal set already being announced after their first metal set just dropped. I think they're kind of aware of this. They might, somebody in that company is aware of it.
They have
it's an incestuous industry.
Well, sure. they're gonna have a captive audience, and they're gonna have people who want to open stuff, want to collect something that normally wouldn't go near AEW. Yeah, they're going to go towards it now because that's all there is.
And you're going to have your wrestling fans are just going to be like, you know what? Not a big AEW collector, but I got to open something. Maybe I check out what it's all about. It's an excellent opportunity.
You know who owns the printing presses though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just saying. It's the same guy. Same guy owns everything.
He owns everything.
Yeah, but I don't think if he's dry for 6 months to a year, I don't think he'd have a problem with AEW printing stuff. I can't think that he looks at AEW and sees competition. I don't. I mean, but who knows? It could just be, like I said, it could be
I doubt it goes that deep.
Printer, I'm still going to print, a King James Version Bible or the Book of Satan. I don't give a fuck as long as I'm getting print jobs done.
I doubt it goes that deep. Yeah, I was just joking, but I think you're right. I think the challenge that with all the products being is definitely an opportunity for alternates like indie cards, the stuff that comes out regularly through the indie promotions. I know you guys are big into that.
Leaf under new management has opportunities. Right?
Leaf, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot to be said here. Like over the last 2 years, like wrestling has really become a very diverse sort of release calendar, which is great to see. I don't obviously my tendencies are very WWE heavy, but there's a lot of collectors out there that do a ton of work across so many different platforms. And to have people like Leaf releasing really good looking cards, you have Upper Deck releasing cards, and you have a bunch of stuff that are going on across the indie promotions. Like there is wrestling cards to buy. I still think that it's going to be difficult because so much of the audience in collecting cards is the new stuff. And to Panini's point from their filing, they really have done a tremendous job in bringing new people in and raising the eye level of the average collector to know that wrestling cards are a viable sort of purchase point. So then my question now becomes, and this is the one that I've literally gotten 100 messages on today. If we're looking at the end of the Panini road, what does that truly mean for WWE cards? And both from the conceptual point of Topps taking over first, and then secondly, things like outstanding redemptions, things like product on the shelves, stuff like that. So let's start with the stuff that I think we can more easily speak to, which is sort of Topps coming back in, and then we'll get to the more speculative stuff around what happens with the existing stuff. So in your opinion, guys, Topps coming back in, let's say that happens sooner rather than later, just for the sake of this discussion. What gets you excited about that specific piece of it?
Well, I'll start. I mean, Panini is sort of created a new world, and especially on the base collecting side of things, where you're doing these crazy premium releases and they're really difficult to put together. If we go back, like, we lived with Topps before at different points in wrestling card history, and as recently as 4 years ago or 3 years ago. So we know what we get with Topps. Now we don't know what the release calendar is, and if there's going to be more premium product. Like, have we created a world now where the Topps of the world are going to say, well, no more,
That's a good question.
no more 25-30 cent base cards. Now a card is $2 no matter what. Like, has that precedent been set with the frequency? That's why, again, I point to
Great
this
question.
communication that says Panini themselves in a written communication to a judge that, hey, we've greatly expanded the wrestling card market. So that's the point that they want out there for the legal world to know. And lawyers are going to argue this, and that's a big point of it. So with that market now, what does Top do? Do they go back to the flagship, the then and nows, and the road to WrestleManias and those SummerSlam and Money in the Bank kind of releases? Or is it more premium kind of stuff like the Panini Immaculates and the Impeccables and the Elites and the higher end Chronicles and that kind of
Great
thing?
question.
So really, until we know a Topps release calendar and what kinds of products are going to make, we're going to buy this stuff. The diehards, we will. The four of us will, and the guys close
Absolutely,
to the hobby, the 100 or so guys that live and breathe this stuff daily. It's important to us. We're going to muddle through it, but again, a lot of who knows, and that's what most of the rest of this conversation is probably going to be. Maybe this, maybe that, because again, until a judge makes a decision. And then Panini accepts that decision, because of course there's going to be countersuits and this kind of thing, and getting trying to. They're not going to lie down easy. But Topps is coming, and we've lived through this before, so I think we're going to be fine. It's just a matter of how long.
Yeah,
I think that's a great question, Paul. I mean, like, if people think that, let's ask the group, like, what do you guys think Topps goes back to? Are they going back to the way it was before? Or are they going to take on a completely new direction, or is it more of a hybrid approach, Tony and Ryan?
Tony,
Go
go
for
ahead.
it,
Okay. No, I think they're going to have a couple sets that'll placate the middle level collectors, but these days of $60 Chrome boxes are gone. You'll never see a $60 Chrome box. They're going to come out with Chrome. It's going to be hot. People are going to want it. Secondary market's going to boost it up, like we saw with Panini products. I think you could see a $300, $400 box of Chrome. I really do, at least for the first release. They're going to go big with this license. They're going to go big. They're going to bring back probably Transcendent, I would imagine. It's a very, very popular set. They'll bring back Chrome. They can bring back, there's like 5 or 6 different names under the Chrome banner. You got Bowman's Best and Chrome and Finest and all this stuff. It's all stuff people want. People love Chrome cards. So they're going to bring those back. They're going to be expensive. Hopefully they stick with some on-card material, but they may not. They may go to sticker. It just depends on the logistics of everything. But like I said, I think you'll see a couple lower, maybe $90 to $150 boxes of stuff that's kind of but people will open it because it's cheap. But the legacy names that people want, expensive. Going to be expensive, period.
you're going to have Chrome. I think Finest probably comes back into play. Undisputed is going to come back into play. Probably it's a very successful brand for them. And I don't see why they wouldn't bring back a Transcendent. Never had a problem with it before. And if it ain't broke, why fix it?
So
So
more on the premium side then.
yeah, more premium side.
Yeah.
They might, they might throw the cheaper, a bone once in a while here. It's like that, but I doubt it. I think Panini set a precedence here that, wrestling card collectors are willing to pay these kind of prices when it comes to that, and that's not going to go unseen. So I agree. I don't think we're going to see $60, $75, $100 boxes of Chrome anymore. I think it's going to be $150, $200 a box.
And we're going to see
Speculate.
both the 18-pack configuration, and we're going to see jumbos like they do in the sports too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're going to have possibly $400 or $500 boxes of Chrome, and they'll add more autographs and everything else, and it'll just be expensive. So you know, all the people who are cheering in the streets that were going back to 2018, it's not going to happen, guys and gals.
Well, remember during the Panini era, you know, these last 14, 15 months, we only had the NXT, which was the only sort of old school, lower level release. The rest
That's
of
gone
them,
now. Yeah.
yeah, and the rest of them have been, you know, premium to top end.
But even that first
Yeah.
Revolution box, I was buying those boxes at $55 a box. That wasn't
And so many
wasn't too
people
bad.
love that. It was
Yeah, that wasn't too
it was
bad.
a really successful, yeah.
Even
think,
this
and
year's
here's the other
Revolution is
thing.
still affordable.
Yeah. I
But-
think this year's Revolution, even with the kabooms, was really well received sort of break from sort of the top end stuff. But here's the other thing. Topps really now has a roadmap to things that WWE let Panini do. So previously, we never had we always had event used, player worn, or I'm sorry, like really the relics were all very tied to specific things, events, ring worn, you know, whatever. Panini really sort of went off the entire opposite direction, like they have in football, baseball, wherever, basketball, where they're worn at a signing for a couple of seconds. And it led to some of the coolest looking cards I think WWE's ever had, with the shirt cards from Immaculate and Select and some of those other relic cards that we saw. But those relics are meaningless. They're not from anything. I think now Topps has a roadmap to go back to WWE and say, you let Panini do these things, we get to do those things too. Maybe we get a set like Topps Dynasty now. Maybe we get a set like we see in baseball, where they're able to create more relic focused sets because they don't have to go and source ring worn gear. They don't have to source a table or a ladder like they did for Fully Loaded. Like the types of things like that, I think those roadmaps are, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube there. And I think additionally, where Panini really has excelled is on the checklist of autographs. They've really exploded those. If you remember back to the last years of Topps, I mean, people like Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch and all of them, they were on a really tight SP list. Autographs were 50 and below sometimes. And for Roman Reigns, like all the top names, Panini really put Austin and Undertaker and all these guys at a really high clip, made them very affordable. People were buying autographs they never thought they'd have access to. I think those days may be in a mix here. We might be entering a hybrid season of like what those checklists look like. But we'll get there, Ryan. Hold on one second. Let me finish my thought. The specifics here around the way that Panini produced products versus the way Topps is going to produce products. Topps spent a third, maybe even less than a third, if you look at the royalties that they put in that filing on their license timing to what Panini spent from 2022 to 2023 and onwards. Panini really put a ton of money into this license. Fanatics likely has this license now as a line item in a greater Fanatics WWE shop deal, but there's going to be more focus. There's more collectors. There's more money. I really hope that some of the roadmap that Panini provided with bringing more people to the sets, whether that's names from Legends and stuff like that, continues. We get cool looking cards. We get sets like Topps Dynasty alongside the Undisputeds, which I love. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, people think like I'm this Panini fanboy. Like, if you look back on my shelf, if you could see it behind me, there's a ton of Topps stuff on there. I have collected Topps almost since the beginning of my time in WWE. Like, this is a really fun time for me too. I love wrestling cards. It doesn't matter who makes them as long as they look cool. So, Ryan, you were going to say something?
Well, just to jump on what you just said there, I think we're all fanboys of whoever's making the cards. We just want the card to be good. Just be good. It's not a Panini versus Topps thing. It's never been a Panini versus Topps thing. And if you go back and watch some of our previous videos, we did one explicitly on what happens if Topps comes back in the market. And we talked about the good and the bad, like we always do. We always look at both sides. If Panini's out, then Panini's out. There's nothing the four of us, or quite frankly, 99.9% of anybody watching this video now can do about it. It is what it is. If Topps Fanatics are going to be making wrestling cards, we need to embrace it and just hope that they have a will to achieve the standards that Panini put out. Because Panini, I've been in the cards a long time, guys. I'll be 44 in January. Yeah. I've been in it since I was 7. I've seen everything top to bottom. Okay. whoever was in charge of WWE over Panini actually gave a shit about these licenses and these cards. They actually cared. They cared about the photo selection. They cared about the value. They didn't put that much thought and process into other sets. I mean, that's for damn sure. You can definitely look at other sets and say, whoever did the WWE sets cared. They actually gave a shit about these products, and that's what we need out of Fanatics. I hope it doesn't end up in the getting chewed up by Topps, and it's just a cookie cutter garbage that Topps was at the end of their run in 2018, 2019. So that's what I hope. Now, to go on the autograph situation, about a week ago, what really kind of perked my ears up a little bit was I'm still collecting the UFC instant cards from Panini. So instant is exactly what it is for WWE. They take pay-per-views and they highlight the 5 fights and they put a card out for each fight, and then they're a week to order, and it's the print run is whatever it is. Up until a week ago, I had never seen, and then they scatter in autographs. I had never seen a Panini instant autograph for under $100. Even if it was like a low-level, mid-level fighter that nobody really collected, they were $100 minimum, with the stars being upwards of $500. I think getting into like 1,000 for like the one-on-one versions. Panini has released on 3 or 4 consecutive days really top-level UFC fighter autographs at bargain basement prices. Like they're offering Khabib Nurmagomedov for $100, which is unheard of. They're offering Legends for $19.99, $24.99, $29.99. This is a sticker dump, guys. That's all it is. They know this. Get rid of their inventory, get rid of it. So you also. What?
You're freezing up, but you're freezing up a little bit.
Me for?
No, you're good.
You're freezing up a little bit. You're good now.
Apologies.
But you're good. We got the gist of it.
Okay, so don't be surprised if you see this with WWE here pretty soon, where they start throwing out Stone Cold autographs and Undertaker autographs, and they're really cheap and affordable. So make sure you're watching their instant page. That's what I want to tell
you. You mean Panini hasn't already devalued all these guys' legends who used to be really worth something, and now worth this? Oh my God! But it better be expensive when I want to sell it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's a criticism that, all of a sudden there's a whole whack more of Triple H and Undertaker autographs. Bret Hart should never be a $30 autograph, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like if Panini's on the ropes and they have product and they got to get rid of it. I bought a lot of Flair stuff real cheap at the end of that scenario, so that's all stuff that's.
Do people think that Bret Hart was like a really high seller? Because he's never been a high seller.
I mean, I could pick up Bret Hart autograph cards for under $10 a piece. I mean, autographs for under $10 a piece. He's signed so much over the years. There's going to be no shortage of. You think Hogan signed a lot? Hell no. Bret Hart signed probably 10 times what Hogan's ever signed his entire career, because he signs constantly all the time. It's very easy and very affordable. So it was never, maybe in the trading card world, he was a little more, I don't know, but this bullshit stuff of stuff's getting devalued because there's so much of it out there. Listen, guys, you can't have your taking.
Yeah, it's a really weird approach, and I get where collectors originally are saying like, hey, I paid $1,500 for the Stone Cold Transcendent autograph. Now I can buy a fully loaded for this, or a one out of Chronicles for less than $100. Like, it's not comparable. Like you can't look at it that way. And I think that the changes that have happened throughout the hobby as a result of what Panini's brought have almost entirely been positive. And I think the reason that I say that is not because products are more expensive and people are this and that and the other thing. It's like there's more eyes, there's more fun. The reason we're able to have 5,000 people on Twitter all responding to this news today is because of all of the people that have really invested in WWE cards over the last couple of years. And I think when Topps comes back, this is going to be the real key to watch, is how many of those people are going to want to spend the same amount of money for what Topps is putting out versus what the equivalent was in Panini. And I think people are going to be very surprised to see that there's a lot of people that may want to spend that amount of money on the top stuff too. It may not necessarily be as consistent, but to say that the Topps cards are going to now be valueless or not as valuable as the Panini stuff, I think you're living in a little bit of a dream world.
Or
Like
or the other way around
you're
even, you know, for people to say that Panini all of a sudden is gonna be worthless because of this news. Like all of a sudden,
I
absolutely,
think
yeah.
the
you know,
exact
like
opposite.
we have to take a step back. You know, everything's not always about value. I think a time's going to come in the future where we're going to look fondly back at this time of the Panini stuff and the people that are
Right.
making a living off of it. But from a guy that's been doing this for a long, long time collecting stuff, the legacy of Panini is the output of their products, regardless of what it's worth. Now, when I heard today that there wasn't going to be a second Immaculate set, I was thrilled, right? Because I've just spent the last year,
Right, because
you know,
exactly.
putting together
Yeah.
the first one. Now, I had this conversation with Steve. Tony knows my buddy Steve, and I was trying to explain to him sort of what was going on. And I've chatted about this before, but just to be clear to the outside world, on the Immaculate release, you know, to put a base set together, you had one per box. So you would have had to buy 100 boxes to get 100, and then you probably would have had to buy 50 more to avoid doubles. So that's what, 75 grand. So that's out the door, right? Now you could
It's a
buy
huge
you
investment.
could, you know, so you could buy transcendent base sets before, here's $1,000, here's all the cards. Panini made it such that, you know, we talked at the advent of Panini how they were going to kill it for base set collectors, and this was intended to be a final nail through the heart, you know, because it was next to impossible to do. And that's what I was explaining to Steve. That's what Panini gave us that we might not ever see again. Panini gave us White Sparkle that we might not ever see again. Panini gave us a Black Rock that sold for $125,000 that we might not ever see again. So there's a lot that Panini did, and there's been naysayers throughout, and honestly, they just don't get it. They don't understand how great it's been having something come into the market that's brought so many people in, has brought so much attention, and it's just done so many good things for the hobby. You can always find negatives in anything. You don't say, oh well, you know, you can get all these Steve Austin autographs cheaper than you could have before, or this or that. But I tell you, it's like going back and looking at the TriStar stuff now. We look at it back at fondly. Tony's doing the stuff with Jamie and Chuck on the Fleer, you know, and there's more stuff being found out there, and relics all of a sudden are selling for $1,000 a piece. This was not
Yeah.
a bust by any stretch of the imagination, the Panini era. It was something that we're going to look back upon fondly, and hopefully we won't be too disappointed by what happens next.
And it's not all related to Panini either. Like we can't look at this so narrowly either. Like I think there's a lot of naysayers out there like, oh, Panini fucked us all on this, that, and the other thing. But look at what it's done for everything else. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
like, and we're talking about very specific vocal minority, we get it. But like I think that like if you look at just the top stuff even has skyrocketed in price because people are going back and looking at the chrome gold refractors, or they're looking at the older tops releases from like 2002 and beyond into the heritage stuff and so on and so forth. Like, you know, the Fleer stuff as well. You mentioned the $1,000 Kurt Angle ribbon that I'm sure you guys are going to talk about in that video. Like there's a ton of things that have all come to light because there's just more eyes, there's more people, and rising tides lift all boats. But I think the what we have to look back on, a couple of really important facts, is there's only 2 years of Prism. There, in all likelihood, there's only going to be 2 years of Prism. There's only going to be 2 years of Select. There's only 1 year of Immaculate. There's in the grand scheme of wrestling cards, which have been around for 100 years almost. That is a speck in a wide universe of shit, and that is very little to go around. And when people are looking back on this time 10 years from now and say, man, I really wish I could get that, you know, Rhea Ripley logo card or whatever, because she's now one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time. Or I really wish I could get that Stone Cold Beer Smash card from Immaculate. There's only 49 of them. Like, that isn't going to be repeated. Or the number card we always talked about from Impeccable. Like, there's only one set of those now. Like, all of those things, that's what made the Transcendent Superfractors my favorite set of all time. It was only going to maybe made once, right? So there's only 50 of them. Like, looking back on this, Paul, like you said, I can't agree with you any more than that, because it's such a profound statement that this is such a small time frame, but it's really brought a really historic impact to the overall hobby. Tony, you were going to say something?
Yeah, it really has. I mean, this is kind of like, we can go back and look at Topps' WCW releases that were a joke when they first came out. You know, no one really thought so much about it.
Yeah,
Now
exactly.
here we are some odd years later, and it's like it's one of the most coveted releases that we can ever talk about, and
Yep.
and more modern stuff that people are going out. Granted, it's about the autograph cards, but
Sure.
I mean, still, it's still a release that now we look back on and go, man, I should have, been collecting back then, but it's just, I mean, you'll be doing that same thing with Panini stuff, probably going 20 years from now too. You never know. I mean, it's such a small window.
Well, the autograph situation, you can't cry about how expensive Panini is and you're priced out, and then complain that the prices got too low. You know why? It doesn't work like that. Up until a couple of years ago, you were going to pay $500 minimum for a Stone Cold Steve Austin autograph. That price range is out. That's in other universes to a lot of people, $500 for one card. You could have bought the Signature Moves Fleer for $500. You could have bought Transcendent Parallels up into a couple $1,000s. Now we have Stone Cold autographs. If you want to add one to your collection, no one says that's all you have to collect. If you want to go back and buy tops, go back and buy tops. But you can't sit here.
And most of us do.
Right. But you can't sit here and cry about, oh, it's too expensive and I can't pay for it now and I can't enjoy the hobby I love. And then when stuff finally gets down to where you want it to be, you can't go, oh, it's too cheap. They devalued the dollar. I can't take it. So if you're going to cry about that stuff, go in your closet, grab your Jeff Hardy pillow buddy, and just sit there and have a good cry over it. That's
it. So let's talk about a little bit of speculation here, because I said I got a ton of messages. 99% of them were about redemptions.
Oh no!
This is the this is probably the one question that is on a number of people's mind, because it is one of the drawbacks of some of the Panini products. There are a lot of redemptions out there still outstanding. There's some Roman Reigns ones, I know. There's some Triple H ones, Undertaker. Like, big names are still out there. They have been filling a lot of them recently. There's a lot of immaculate ones that have been filled. There's a lot of other ones that have been filled, but still a lot outstanding. People have put, because we talked about, these are valuable cards. People have put a shit ton of money into these. I think there's a big question mark yet to be answered here on what's going to happen with these cards. Topps, at the end of their license, was sending out WWE redemptions well past the end of their license. So you do have some confidence there. However, WWE facilitates a lot of the autographs for their superstars. It was that way for Topps. It's likely that way for Panini. To think that WWE, amidst all of these legal actions, is going to give Panini access to get more autographs, probably unlikely, especially from guys like Triple H, who are on the board of the company, or were on the board of the company. Or, I would say more likely that guys like Undertaker, who you would probably be going to his agent or somebody outside of the WWE to get autographs, maybe there's some hope there. But most of these cards that are still outstanding, at least from Immaculate, are one signature short of a triple or a dual, so there's not much left to be done. But I still have cards that have yet to be filled. I have a Cody Rhodes I'm still waiting on, a few others. What do you guys think about that situation for people that are sitting on piles and piles of redemptions waiting to be filled?
I don't have a clue. That's one of those ones that's a crystal ball kind of thing, as to how that's going to shake out. And you're going to have your naysayers jump all over it if all of a sudden a lot of people are left holding the bag and don't get their cards. But that's one of the things that we're just going to have to wait and see on. And hopefully Panini does the best that they can and, remembers that, we were customers of theirs. And look, Panini's not over with. They're still the major player in soccer around the world, so it's a crystal ball kind of thing, Adam, I think. And if we knew the answer to that, we probably wouldn't be sitting here at this hour talking about wrestling cards,
Well,
That's true.
There's a couple of different ways you can look at it, and I can speak from experience because I'm in a nearly 4-year fight with Topps over a UFC card that I redeemed right before they lost the license. Now, granted, they got taken over by another company, and I'm working with them to get the card or a substitution that fits, because it's a pretty expensive card. So there's a couple of different ways you can look at the redemptions. One is, if you got stuff in and you're worried about it, call them and get a replacement. That would be one option. Other option is to let
and do it quickly.
Yeah, sure. Like I would do it like tomorrow. If that's the route you want to take. If you think, okay, I'm really worried about my 101 Roman Reigns autograph, or my 101 Cody autograph, or 101 Triple H autograph, or maybe one of the DX quads, because that's even more work getting all those guys to sign it, I would call Panini and get a replacement started. That's option one. Option two is you sit there and you wait and you hope for the best and you hope you get your card. I agree with Adam. I think they're going to fill redemptions way past when Topps is taking over. I think they're going to make an earnest effort to do it. Option 3 is if you get a redemption now for Panini, you really need to decide if you want to get on that train and redeem it and get it. That's, if it's somebody who's live, if it's somebody we've seen already, redeem it. You'll get it. For the most part, I don't want to sit here and say 100% you'll get it, but I would think if they've sent out redemptions already and you put a code in, you're going to get that card. If it's somebody who hasn't been seen yet, like Triple H, you may want to weigh your options and maybe, not redeem it and maybe trade it or sell it, or that's, you can do whatever you want with it. But if you have the testicular fortitude to sit there and wait for it, you can, but just be prepared that there may come a day where they replace it with something without telling you. Straight up.
And I think there's a key element here. There's 4 people here who are probably a somewhat above average collector experience, right? If you look at the grand scheme of the hobby, the 4 of us have a good collective experience going on. There's a lot of collectors out there that don't. So they're opening boxes, they're pulling redemptions. They're like, oh, what do I do with this? Blah, 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 blah. They're just putting in the code and hoping for the best. So I get that there's a lot of uncertainty. I fully understand that. I think redemptions as a whole, every time, and I've redeemed my fair share, 100 at least, over the last couple of years, every time you put in that code, it is your risk to take. And I say that because a lot of the times it is not Panini who made the fuck up. It is the athlete or the superstar who hasn't signed their cards. Now, sometimes it's a damaged card, and then you're really fucked because they have to reproduce the card and get it signed, and then you're really fucked. But if it's something where they're just waiting on a signature, a lot of the times it's not within Panini's control to get a hold of that signature. So you are taking a lot of risk redeeming a card that's not live. But there's a precedent to be said. Like, if I have this card and you're promising me this card, you should give it to me. And I think for the most part, Topps and Panini do take that pretty seriously, no matter what the spin is on social media. So it's a risk. It's a huge risk every time you hit enter after you put in that code.
It's going to come to a point where it's going to be like, where places like Wrestling Card Price Guide and WTC become very important to collectors, especially new collectors who get that information. There are people out there who are still like, should I be buying this box of, Ultimate Diva from Fleer? Because, I might get that. No, because all redemption, dude, it's worthless paying that kind of price for it. It's all redemption. You ain't getting shit. So it's important that we get out there. That's kind of where, Paul and I's responsibility to the hobby in itself.
Huge.
Yeah. And, people need to be made aware of that. So it's always a risk. Redemptions, period, are a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
we're
you said,
here.
there's no
we're here
guarantees at the best of times, right? So now when the sky is proverbially falling, get on it, like Ryan says. Like, if you're concerned about it, and I wonder how many of these things are going to be sold to unsuspecting people that don't know what's going on, and hopefully not a lot of that going on.
I mean, like, you have resources to help you at all these card companies. It's just, are you willing to wait for them to help you? Number one, so there's a long wait time on the phone probably tomorrow, because you're going to have a lot of WWE collectors all trying to call in. Are you willing to put your trust that they fulfill it with a card that makes sense for your collection? I mean, really, the redemptions were never the problem. It's the replacements that were always the problem. That was really the issue, is the time and the replacements. Here, you're going to be dealing with both. And I think that's probably a risk I'm not even willing to take at this point. Go ahead, Ryan.
We discuss a lot of things on this channel about wrestling cards. And sometimes we have to talk about the stuff that people don't want to talk about. And people don't want to talk about. If you want to bitch about it, people want to talk about it all the time. But we're trying to give you options and information on the negative side of things. This is a negative thing. This is absolutely a negative thing. We don't know. This is, for me, this is like when UFC got lost from Topps. I had just redeemed a big card. I didn't know if I was going to get it. I was kind of stuck. And then I called them and they said they were going to make it. And it's been a couple of years now. So we just want to make sure that the audience that we have understands what's going on here. We understand there's people who, and if you're going to open products here in about 6 months to a year, Panini products, be prepared that those redemptions you get, you may not get, period. And they may be dead just like the Fleer products. So yeah, it is negative to talk about stuff like this. Yeah, it's a risk, but it's also important that people understand their options and understand what they're looking at when they buy these things. So
Yeah, it's always been a buyer beware kind of thing, especially on old wax and old product where the potential to get redemption cards are long since past, right? And like Tony says, there are places you can go to find out, that, hey, don't buy this box because everything you're not going to get what you think, or that these autographs weren't put in packs; they were only by redemption or only after the fact. A lot of WCW stuff is like that. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just be careful and get on it quick. Like don't wait. And remember, a year from now, if you're buying Panini boxes and they're not making WWE cards anymore, use common sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any final thoughts kind of before we wrap this up? Or Tony, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Nope, I agree.
I think it's
So,
just gonna be an
any final
interesting
thoughts?
time.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to be an interesting time, and you know, uh, things are going to change. We're here like right away. The news just came out. We wanted to get out to you guys to say, hey, we're on it, and we're sort of trying to get the information to you as quick as we get it. But a lot of it we just don't know, and even when decisions come down, there's going to be appeals. So, like you said, Adam, on the Panini football, even though they're not technically supposed to be cranking it out, they still are. They're still in that business. It hasn't dried up completely, and there might be some overlap. We don't know what's going to happen with Tops. When, we don't know. We just know it's going to happen sooner than 2026. You can be sure of that. And just remember, as I've said often, it's Michael Rubin's world, and we just live in it. So you want to
That's
know what's
true.
going on. You want to know
That's
want to know
fact.
what's going on next. Read his personal blog or wherever his thoughts come from, and that'll give you a good idea. But the idea of a monopoly, the idea of him completely ruling, is going to lead to other questions. Other companies. Remember, Upper Deck is still out there. Panini isn't done yet. It's all interesting times. But for our small niche, for whatever you collect, whether you're a PC, whether you're an autograph guy, whether you're like Chuck and I, and you buy the entire base sets, you're still going to be able to do that. We were warned when Panini came on the scene that the world was going to end, and it didn't. And I'm all the happier for living through the Panini era. And I'm sure my wall is going to be all the more greater for having that product there 5 years from now, because we might not see that kind of product again. And me, for one, I appreciate it. It was expensive, but it was great stuff.
And look at what we've been able to do on this channel just from that era coming to be. I mean, we've had the main event, we've gotten together as a group, we've done X, Y, and Z together. Like, all of that really probably wouldn't have happened without this sort of new era coming to be. Tony, any additional thoughts and final closing sort of points from you as well?
Just like you said, I don't think this channel would really exist without, Panini plays a big part of that. We've gotten to know other people because of Panini. Panini has actually opened the eyes and put as I've said from the beginning, a bigger spotlight on our hobby that we all asked for the good, bad, or the indifferent. It's what we got. We asked to be recognized and acknowledged, and so we have, and we can't really bitch about it. So we're going to move on. I don't care who has it. I don't care if it's Tops. I don't care if it's some new Techno Team 2000 comes along and starts producing stuff. It doesn't matter to me.
They make great cards.
We're still gonna be talking about wrestling cards. We're still gonna be looking for information. We're still gonna be tracking down stuff. We're still gonna be having a good time about it. We're still gonna show up every year, hopefully at the National, and have a bigger and better thing. I mean, obviously, it's gonna have some implications on what we're gonna be doing going forward when it comes to our, at the National as well. But you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, because right now this is all fresh.
Exactly.
We can keep, getting together on, seems to be a more frequent basis of us just getting together on these monumental announcements. We keep saying, having to talk about things of, oh my God, Tops is this, and now it's that, and now it's Panini's this, and now it's that. And it's like, it's interesting stuff. It's fun stuff. At least I don't have to, I ain't talking politics, so I'm happy about that. I ain't talking about death, so I'm really happy about that. I mean, it's just, this is it's all good, man. It's all good. It's part of the.
Although this story is ripe full of politics and a death potentially.
Yeah, true.
There you go. That's true. That is true. All right, Ryan, you're up, man.
Well, what did Ken?
Oh, sorry, Tony. I didn't mean to cut. No, hold on. I didn't mean to cut Tony off.
No, I'm good, man. I'm good.
I thought you were done, man.
I am.
Well, it's like Kent Brockman said, I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords. We just have to wait and see what's going to happen here. Use common sense when you're buying products. I if you're a PC collector of a certain wrestler and you miss stuff like Revolution Galactics and tie-dye prisms, start looking for those, because like we said before, that stuff's going to dry up. It's going to find its way into permanent collections and you're not going to see it again. So this is a very quick snapshot of the hobby, this 2-year, 10-year, it looks like. And there's a lot of good stuff that came out of it, and a lot of stuff that people like. And it's going to be a lot of stuff that Fanatics is going to mimic too. So be prepared for that. But nothing's going to compare to the 2 years we had at Panini if this is truly the end of it. So if you're missing stuff for your collection, this is a good pause financially for a lot of people. Go back and start buying stuff you missed out on. And just remember this time. I for one think it was a great time. I'm sad to see it go if it's the end. And I just hope Fanatics can do it justice when they pick up, if that's truly what's going to happen here.
Hey, when you edit this video, Adam, you better put the doors. This is at the end on this one.
Yeah.
That's a good. That's a good. I can't. Yeah, we'll have to pay for the rights for that. Maybe we can get Tony Khan to send us some money or some cocaine. For me, I like to echo what all of you guys are saying. I think you've all hit it right on the head. There's not much to add in that sense. I think what everybody needs to understand, from the sake of the 4 people on this screen, like, I don't think you're going to find 4 more passionate individuals wanting to bring you coverage like this. I think there are a ton of passionate wrestling collectors out there. I think that's what makes wrestling unique. But we have really done so much of our work together around bringing you coverage like this. I don't think that changes just because the overlord at the top of the food chain is different, has a different banner on their website. I don't think that changes. And I think you should continue to look to this channel. And Tony, I know you put out some tweets earlier. Like, there is no difference in my collecting because Topps is putting out boxes or Panini's putting out boxes. It was never like that for me before. In fact, if you go back through my blog, you probably see me have more Panini hate than anybody. But I think that the long and short of it is that things are going to change dramatically, likely over the course of the next couple of months and the next couple of years, one way or the other. For football, baseball, basketball, everything is going to be completely different, mostly because there's a new Thanos in town. And because of that, we're going to feel the effects of that in WWE now as a part of this huge. Now we're really at the forefront of this for the first time ever, right? Wrestling is at the forefront. This is the first time. We're the first domino to fall instead of the last. But like Ryan was saying, I think this was a wonderful time over the last couple of years. I didn't expect it to be either. I thought Panini was going to come in and either fall flat on their face or piss too many people off and just not have the success that they have. But they really turned a lot of people into collectors, and they've turned a lot of wrestling collectors, and they've turned a lot of people into fans. Just because, like Ryan said, whether it was Lucas or Steve or some of the other guys behind the scenes here have really shown that they've cared about these products and they've made them so much fun to collect. And I think for a lot of the times that I was collecting Topps, there was guys behind the scenes like that too. It was just shown in different ways because they had such a smaller budget. And hopefully that changes now. Hopefully this is enough of a niche, kind of to Paul's point now, that we can see what Topps can do really with a full-throated support of WWE license. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all shakes out, mainly because I have so many questions. And I think if you watch this video, you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of speculation here. They don't really know what's going on. Yeah, that's the point. That's why we wanted to get on here and give our thoughts. So before you get on your social media machine and start trashing us and talking about how we don't know what we're talking about, how you were always right, or all this other stuff, like, we are just regular people. This is not what we do for a living, unless you're Tony running a wrestling shop. This is not what we do for a living. This is what we do for fun because we are passionate individuals. And I think that, it's good to have these types of dialogues. To Ryan's point, maybe sometimes it's negative. To Paul's point, maybe sometime we have, disagreements, or we have things that we need to talk about that most people just don't know about. Or to Tony's, what he was saying about having this information for collectors, that's what this channel will always be about. I don't think that changes going forward. No. So anyways,
this is big for us. It's the same family moving into a new house. That's all it is.
Great analogy. Great way to end it. So thanks to all of you guys for hopping on kind of last second. Let's just quickly go around and give the social media handles just so that they can see where to continue to follow us for more news. Tony, I'll start with you.
Well, hell, if you're watching this, you're at the channel you need to be at. It's wrestlingtradingcards.com.
There you go. Paul?
Card_guide on Twitter, the Wrestling Card Price Guide. And let me just say, Adam, thanks to you for roping us together so quickly. It is cool that, when something breaks like this within hours, we're sort of, okay, what time can we get on this? And let's make some quick notes and let's, present a semi-intelligent sort of analysis of as much as we know so that we could give it out there to the hobby. Because I don't know that this happens in UFC and other sports that right away. And we take pride in this. And, you guys, when you do your shows, I call it just-in-time delivery of news. We have, eyewitness news. As it happens, we're here. So we appreciate you guys watching, the support for all the stuff that we do here on WTC Network. And everyone have a good night and stay tuned. It's going to get interesting.
Right.
Instagram, non-sports showcase. I'm all out of ideas. I think we've pretty much explored what it could be, what it might be, what it won't be, and what's going to happen. But in the end, nobody really knows. This is all so fresh. You could get a ruling tomorrow that Panini has the license for 2 more years. We just don't know. We don't know. So there's a lot more information to come. Make sure you're following Paul Lesko on Twitter, and he'll have all the legalese breakdowns.
The legal side of it.
Yeah.
And then check back here for more information as it breaks, and we'll go over it as much as we can.
There's gonna be appeals. There's this is gonna drag on. This is and while this is dragging on, we're just gonna be collecting wrestling cards as we do.
But
I'll be first in line.
I want to let you guys watching at home know that you've got 3 people here in 3 different time zones, or 4 people here in 3 different time zones. So we do make this work for you. I think it's coming up on midnight where Paul's at. So we do appreciate you. We're glad you're watching. If you got any questions, hit us up on social media. See you guys.
And you can find me at WWE Gelman on Instagram, at SCN Censored on Twitter. Stay tuned. We're going to have a ton more to talk about. There's new sets coming out probably at some point. But in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. Tony, you have a ton of videos coming out. Collector Series, Series 2 is whatever. I don't know what you're going to be calling it, but there's also the videos highlighting collectors, some from those sets, like ton of stuff to check back on here. Make sure you are always tuned into social media for us. If Twitter eventually goes paid, I'm sure we'll be on Facebook or on other platforms as well, whatever Twitter's called these days. But great to get on with you guys. It was great to talk to everybody on the out in YouTube world here. And I think this has been just one of those days that we will remember for a long time. And it was great to have you guys on to sort of break it down. So thanks, everyone. Talk to you guys soon.